It's really good music, that is. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've had a bit of a stretch of your legs, maybe a bit of a discussion. I'm here with Pete Dre, who's going to be leading the next session. And Pete, you're the creative evangelism head in UCCF. Could you tell us maybe what that means?
Yeah, sure. I mean, even today, do you know, I think we've got 17 different unis who are tuning in from across the northeast. That's amazing. And our unis are all really different from each other. Do you know, even in Leeds that we know well, the 5 different unis so different from each other. And so my job really is to equip staff workers and relay workers, but also you guys on the ground, such that you can live and speak in such a way that, do you know, when you tell people about Jesus, it actually sounds like good news. We want to be faithful to the gospel, but also as well contextualized to our surroundings as we possibly can be. So yeah, that's my remit.
That's a really good definition. I like it. I'm just going to pray for you before you start your session.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, Lord Jesus, we thank you for Pete. We thank you for him bringing your word and teaching to us today. Just pray that you'd speak through him and give everyone who's listening ears to hear what you are saying and how we can apply some of your truth to our lives. Yeah, we just lift this time up to you in your name. Amen.
Amen. Cheers, James. Great. Brilliant to have you back. Hope that you've been well refreshed during the screen break. Really happy to hear, especially that Team Sheffield, you're not in Katie's garden, but inside. That sounds like a very sensible decision on a day of monsoon weather like today. We've been thinking this morning already about the theme of welcome, the God who welcomes. That brilliant word from Ed in Galatians this morning. And now we're going to carry on in that spirit, really. And we're going to think, having been welcomed by this God in this way, what does it look like to welcome others? And particularly, what does it look like to welcome others with the autumn in mind? Do you know, something like 72,000 people will move away to go to university for the first time come September. That's the same as the population of Harrogate. The population of Harrogate is arriving in our universities in the autumn, and they'll come not only from all over the UK, but from all over the world as well. What does it look like to welcome them well? There are bad reasons for wanting to welcome people well. One of them might be to prove ourselves to God. Let's just shelve that. That's a bad reason to welcome people well. So we've thought already we've been adopted to sonship. We have nothing to prove. We're absolutely safe. We don't even need to prove ourselves to each other or to church leaders or even those who are arriving to be welcomed. Instead, we're invited into the stream of God's welcome, as it were, that just as we have stood in this flow of divine welcome, we can welcome others too. I've got to say, I think this is a wonderful year to think about welcoming people. Many of us just feel quite disconnected from the world, disconnected from each other. Can you imagine how anxious many of those will be arriving at your university in September, potentially especially those who are coming from other countries, for whom this is a massive step into the unknown. I also think that the CU is uniquely placed to welcome people well. Do you know, in most universities, nearly every society has stopped over the past year. The CU is going to have carried on going. The fact that you are here this morning is testament to the fact that God has preserved CUs. It may well be that actually there's quite a threadbare extracurricular makeup on many of our university campuses in the autumn. How wonderful it is that God has preserved us. And I think there's a responsibility that comes as well as just the joy in offering welcome to those who arrive. We're going to start today by hearing a story of welcome. Ethan might just want to get this on screen. A story of welcome. We're going to hear about Jess. She arrived at a university, not one of the ones in our region, but at Hertfordshire University, a little bit south of where we are. And as we hear her story, I'd love you to listen to it. We'll listen to it for about 5 minutes. and then there'll be some discussion questions for us straight after. But enjoy Jess's story of welcome.
Hi, my name's Jess, and I go to the University of Hertfordshire and I study journalism and creative writing. When I first started at the University of Hertfordshire, I was really, really shy. I was very quiet and I was going through a lot of mental health issues. So I just didn't really get involved in any societies and I just felt really isolated as a commuter and just not really involved in anything. In my second year, I became a little bit braver and I saw a leaflet for the Hearts Christian Union. Now, I didn't come from a Christian background. I wasn't someone that was that religious. I didn't really think that believing in God meant something more than just praying or when things got tough or praying for friends or family when they were ill. And I felt very connected for some reason to going along and seeing what I thought. Now, at this time, Hearts CU were having a ice cream event, so I went along and I decided that I was just going to brave it, not knowing anybody at all, and just see how I felt. Now, it was daunting, I can't lie. I felt really worried, I didn't know anybody, I thought that maybe this isn't for me, and I was so prepared to just take 2 steps out the car and then get back in and go, actually, Mum, I'd rather just go home now. But no, I did it. I went upstairs and I went into a room and I was met with the most welcoming faces, and there was one girl in particular who really welcomed me and said, "Hi, what's your name?" And I said, "Oh, I'm Jess." She sat me down with a few people who were already in the Christian Union and I chatted to them. I went and got myself a bowl of ice cream where I was welcomed by more faces who chatted to me, asked me about my course and asked me a bit about my journey. And I didn't really know what my journey was. I didn't really know about Christianity. I didn't really know how to explain to them why I was even there. I felt a little bit weird about it. It was strange. And, after that night, that could have just been it. I could have just gone to the ice cream event, thought they were some nice friends, but not thought anything of it. But no, I didn't just get one message from the girl that welcomed me. I got several messages, people saying how nice it was to see me and whether I would be coming to any more events, and also people inviting me to come and read the Bible with them as well. But I wasn't sure. I sort of panicked a little bit. I was like, oh, I'm not ready for the Bible, but I am ready for this new community and I'm ready for these people to have some kind of impact on my life. And so I just replied to them and I said, I'd love to see you again. And anyway, so you would think that I would stop there, but no. I was invited to someone's house to make brownies the next week. And I went along and I read a bit of Mark's Gospel with her. A few weeks after that, I was invited to come and make homemade chicken. And I went to dinner and was greeted by about 7 or 8 different faces. And it was just the most welcoming and friendly community. And, I just became friends with them. I wanted to be friends with them. It wasn't pressurized by the Bible or by God. I actually wanted to be friends with these people. I wanted to experience their community. And after that, I then became more interested in God because I knew that it was God who was speaking to me. I knew that it was God who was speaking to these people. And I think that, if you want to have someone like me, you want to have a Jess at your events, then you just need to be friends with that person first. You need to plant that seed in their head about God, and then you need to read the Bible with them, make brownies with them, and do fun things with them. And then whatever happens after that is obviously God's work. God is speaking to that person so much, and I promise you it's so worth it. in the end. And I mean, look at me, I'm going to church and I'm reading the Bible. I'm currently on a Bible course and I'm absolutely dived headfirst into Christianity. So yeah, have a think about inviting that friend that you think isn't interested. Have a think about looking after that person who seems a bit shy and see where it takes you. Even if it doesn't take you anywhere but friendship, it's worth it in the end, promise.
So here are some questions that I'd love you to discuss in the groups with those around. I love that story. Jess is just so normal, isn't she? And we see the way in which God knits together very everyday things in order to welcome people like Jess home. But it's expressed through the welcome of his people. So for around 10 minutes, with those in groups around you, I'd love you to discuss these 4 questions. What strikes you most about Jess's story? What impresses you most about Hertfordshire CU? I mean, what heroes? If someone like Jess turned up at one of your CU events, maybe during Freshers Week, how would you seek to deepen friendship with them? And how would you help them find out more about Jesus? Okay, so for about 10 minutes in your groups, have a discussion of those 4 questions. Great. Just be maybe drawing your discussions to close. We'll come back together in 30 seconds' time. Brilliant. Hope that discussion was helpful. In some ways, if you remember nothing from this session, just remember the feel of Jess's story. I think in so many ways, Jess's story exhibits a whole number of the hallmarks of the kind of welcome that we want to offer others as God's people. And my hope is what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 guiding principles and then just say a little bit more about Freshers Week itself. But the 3 guiding principles I hope you will see just absolutely flow out of what we've seen Jess talk about. So 3 guiding principles. Here's number 1. Guiding principle number 1 is offer them friendship, offer them Jesus. Okay, guiding principle number 1, offer them friendship, offer them Jesus. One of my favourite Bible verses, in fact, somebody wrote it beautifully in calligraphy for me, and it sits on in a frame just on the side of my desk, is 1 Thessalonians 2 verse 8, which says, "Because we loved you so much, we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well." Because we loved you so much. That's where the conviction comes from. We believe that people are worthy of God's love. Just being human. Because we loved you so much, we delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well. Do you see what Paul is saying? He's saying that actually our interface as we meet new people should be both relationally strong. We want to demonstrate something of the love of God in our own affection and welcome for people, but also because we love them, we want them to grow in a depth of understanding and love of Jesus himself as well. You will likely meet, between your CU, hundreds of people through online interactions and face-to-face encounters at the beginning of next term. What should flavour our interactions? It's those 2 things: friendship, our lives, and the gospel of Jesus as well. That means that I think as we think about planning for autumn term and for kind of a social media campaign over the summer, we need to always be asking 2 questions. Here's question number 1. How am I inviting this person to grow in deeper friendship with me? Or even better, actually, how am I inviting this person to grow in deeper friendship with us as a Christian union? Ideally, I think genuine friendship, genuine relationship, we want to last way beyond the swirl of Freshers Week. It's pretty easy, isn't it, to offer somebody friendship, a warm smile, some advice, taking them to a coffee shop during Freshers Week. How much more significant is it if actually that relationship lasts way beyond Freshers Week and later into term itself? Do you know, it may be that in some of your universities, there are some really easy opportunities to build genuine friendships and relationships that will last beyond Freshers Week. Some universities have freshers reps, or you might have hall parents or something like that. Do you know what? My guess is that the SUs are going to find it extremely difficult to recruit people for these roles this year. Could it even be that somebody from your CU could go to the SU and say, look, we would just love to play a part in providing the human resources as freshers reps, as hall parents? I mean, wouldn't that be amazing? Could it be that maybe each person in the CU has the opportunity to develop deeper relationships with maybe half a dozen people? Here's another piece of advice which I found very helpful, which is you go into Freshers Week, go into a new term, not looking for a new friend with a big capital F. That could actually be quite intimidating. Do you know what? If somebody knew that you wanted to be their best friend with a capital B, a capital F, they might run a mile from you. Actually, friendship doesn't normally work like that. Think about the friends who you got to know maybe during your first few weeks at university. They're often not the ones you would have predicted. Almost certainly you didn't look at them and say, you will be my best friend, capital B, capital F. It doesn't normally work like that. Instead, if you resolve to be friendly and you encourage people within your CU to be friendly, you'll find that friendship, being best friends, here is a drink from my best friend, thank you very much, will flow from it. Brilliant. So how can we grow in friendship? But also, how can we encourage them to get to know Jesus better? And again, this isn't just a plan for Freshers Week, but well beyond as well. If they're a Christian, how can I help them in those uncertain first few weeks to grow in confidence in Jesus and in his love? And if they don't yet know Jesus, how can we sensitively begin to take them on a path of encountering him? So there's principle number one: offer them friendship, offer them Jesus. Here's principle number two, which is to aim to connect with 3 different groups of new students. Okay, aim to connect with 3 different groups of new students. Here are the 3 groups, and in both of these groups I want you to think about not only British students but international students as well. Here are the 3 groups. Group number 1, keen Christians. Okay, people who probably will have been on social media finding out about the CU even before they arrive. These are people who are indwelt by the Spirit, who love Jesus, and probably who aren't just thinking about coming to university to survive, but to thrive. Into this category, by the way, I would add some second years who, for understandable reasons, at the beginning of the last academic year, just somehow missed the CU. Okay, so keen Christians is group number 1. Second group, and this is probably going to be bigger than the first group, is shaky Christians. Okay, people who have encountered Jesus, potentially who love him, who've come from a youth group, but who are being cut away from a whole number of the support networks that they had before. They're probably coming to university thinking, I would quite like to connect with Christians, but who won't go out of their way to connect with Christians. Into this second group as well, I would probably include people who've been part of church youth groups and who maybe have a kind of head knowledge of the gospel, but may never have had a very deep experience of knowing Jesus. Okay? All of these people are probably quite open to connecting with church, being part of the CU, but they're not going to go looking for you. In a sense, you've got to go looking for them. Okay, so group 1, keen Christians. Group 2, shaky Christians. Group 3, seeking students who aren't Christians, but who would be open to a Christian friendship, and who might be even open to asking some of their questions, getting some of their objections on the table, or maybe just talking out loud about some of the questions that have bubbled to the surface during the pandemic. It seems to me that there are lots of people in this third category as well. And Jesus calls them people of peace, people who aren't there necessarily for an argument. It's important to engage them too, but actually those who would really value a Christian friendship, and who actually, to some extent, have started a spiritual journey, even if they don't, that hasn't been very kind of directed up until this point. Now, I've got to say, your CU will probably, by default, connect with one of those 3 groups. It seems to me a lot of CUs think, okay, our aim for welcoming people is just to find the keen Christians. And if we've done that, it's job done. Some other CUs would think, well, the keen Christians will probably turn up anyway, so let's use the whole of Freshers Week to engage those other groups. What I want to say is, particularly this year, we need to place a kind of concerted effort on reaching all 3 of those groups. Okay? It's important that we build our mission team through showing keen Christians that the CU is vibrant and a great way of doing mission on campus, and also will help them find an easy way into local church. It's certainly important that in that middle group, I mean, it could well be that there are a whole number of people who in an ordinary year would have come on fire for Jesus, but just as they come out of the pandemic are feeling shaky. Maybe for mental health reasons, maybe because of reasons of doubt. Their confidence has just been shaken. they would like to be part of the CU, but they're not going to go looking for you. You've got to go looking for them. And then this third group, I mean, September might be the most open door for mission that we have ever seen in my lifetime for student mission. I kind of hope and I pray and I even kind of half expect that might be the case. Wouldn't it be a shame that because just the Christians are out there looking for the keen Christians, we miss those who are incredibly open to a Christian friendship and to engaging with Jesus? The reality is that this year especially, we need to show that the CU is the most brilliant place for students who love Jesus from a whole range of ethnicities and nationalities and church backgrounds to come together to make an impact for Jesus together at the core of the university. But the way that we will engage those people actually is to do what the CU does best, which is to do the kind of thing that Hertfordshire CU did for Jess. Can you imagine if you were a keen Christian or if you were a shaky Christian and you saw the CU's love for Jess, you just think, this is the sort of place where I want to be. Can you imagine just how wonderful it must have been for some of those people to have been at Jess's baptism? Oh, don't we hope and pray that there'll be some students who get baptised and some shaky students who will stick in with church in the CU because of our welcome to those who are outside of the church. So what does this mean? I think it means this. Watch your language. No, I don't mean just that in terms of swearing, although maybe that's a helpful thing. I mean when it comes to talking about CU, online and in person, find a way of talking about CU that's both true and honest, which will engage keen Christians, but you wouldn't also mind your best mate who's not a Christian reading over your shoulder or hearing about as you talk. I think it means demonstrating a quality of welcome that embraces everyone, wherever they're from, whatever they've done, whatever they're like. The best advert for CU, I think particularly for keen Christians, is a CU that does what it says it's about. I mean, I just think, having been at that event, the ice cream event that Jess talks about, it's hard to imagine keen Christians not thinking this is a place which is just drenched in the presence of the fruit of the Spirit. It'd be hard to think that if you're a shaky Christian, this isn't a place where actually I can be loved and cherished and ask my questions safely. And where there'll be people here who I know are committed to me, that they'll take me to church. But also people like Jess. I just loved it. She said at one point I wasn't ready for God, but I did know that I wanted these people's friendship. And it stood out, and that was part of the path that led her to Jesus. I think there will likely be many people like Jess on campus this year who will appreciate that kind of welcome. Let me say, this means that when it comes around to your early meetings in the year, it's much better to talk about Jesus than it is to talk about CU Vision. Honestly, talking about CU Vision is kind of boring, even if your job is to help shape CU Vision like me, okay? I find it quite boring. Tell me about Jesus. Captivate me with Jesus. If I'm a keen Christian, that's just going to help me to put roots down. If I'm shaky, I'm seeing actually that it all boils down to his person. And do you know what? If I'm looking in from the outside, I'll be likely transfixed by what I see of Jesus there. And I think we always want to provide a next step for those who want to go more deeply into the life of the CU. Interestingly, there was some research done a few years ago which was looking at, for volunteer groups, and that is what the CU is really, it's a volunteer group, what keeps you coming back if you visited once? And you know, about 10% of people said, well, it's the vision of the group that keeps me coming back. 1 in 10 people say, do you know what, I really believe in this cause, so I'm going to come back. 30% said, I'm going to come back because I can see that there's a place for me to serve. There's almost a niche with my name on it that I want to go back. It means that I think rather than waiting until late on in the term, we want to help maybe those first years and the second years who were just maybe very much on the CU periphery this year. We want to give them instant ways of serving. Doesn't mean that you necessarily got to get them on a time-heavy rota, but you are saying, do you know what, there's a part for you to play here, and we want to dignify your part here by giving you something to do. But get this, 60% of people come back because of the relationships that they've made. And so What does that mean? Yes, we want to be clear on CU vision. Yes, we want to give people an opportunity to serve. But actually, the way that people feel is 6 times more important than them understanding the vision. The vision will actually just bleed into them if you're doing what you say you're about. Just as the vision of the CU must have bled out to Jess and those who are watching on at Hertfordshire CU. Let me say this year, I think it's really important to provide concrete steps for everyone to be able to bed more deeply into CU life with a handful of people. Okay, this year the majority of people in every CU in our region won't know each other, because we have second years who don't know each other, we have first years who won't know anyone, and a whole lot of third years who might know each other a bit, but who don't really know anybody else in every other year. The danger is that if we put all of the focus on our central meetings, they're not going to be, unless you're from quite a small CU probably, they're not going to be relationally deep enough to keep people coming back. Okay, so an important central meeting is a well-run, well-envisioned, full of Jesus central meeting is important. But actually getting people into whole groups, small groups, impact groups, whatever you're calling them in your setting, is going to be all the more important. If you don't do that, you're probably going to find that a whole number of people drift off very quickly, both first years and second years. And so one of the things that you might want to do this afternoon or in the days and weeks ahead is to talk with your staff worker about how you'll organise impact groups, small groups, hall groups, college groups, whatever you're calling them, how you'll organise them next year, and how you can best advertise them and get people into groups to get going as immediately as possible after Freshers Week. We don't want that awkward wait. Oh, you want to make some friends? Well, we've got a group starting in a month's time. No, we want them to start the week after Freshers Week to really knit people in, whether or not they know the Lord, into these groups where they can come to know Jesus better and grow in relationship together. That means that in almost every CU that's tuning in this afternoon, you're going to need more impact groups and more impact group leaders, more hall group leaders, possibly more college group leaders than you currently have. Don't think about the number of people who are currently engaged. Okay, plan big and plan to be able to retain potentially a big wave of new people who want to be part of your groups in the new year. That's a great thing to talk about with your staff worker. In the first term in impact group material, we're going to be looking at meals with Jesus. 8-week series in Luke's Gospel is going to be a total treat, because again, it will be a way of setting into the CU culture some of the things that Jess was talking about there. So, principle number 1, offer people friendship, offer them Jesus. Principle number 2, aim to connect with 3 groups of new students. Thirdly, principle 3, welcome is a season and not a week. Now, it's tempting, isn't it, to think of only in terms of Freshers Week. Probably when you saw that this session was going to be about welcoming freshers, you thought, well, only be about Freshers Week, maybe International Welcome Week as well. I want to say to you that a good welcome starts way beyond Freshers Week, way before Freshers Week, way before International Welcome Week, and also lasts way beyond as well. Isn't that what we saw again in Jess's story? Okay, there were people weeks after who were still welcoming Jess well. So let's first of all think about when welcome starts. Ethan, you might be ready just to put up a screen for me. Great. Regardless of whether or not a person has done a gap year or not, they start feeling like a student, they start feeling like a university student on A-level results day. Okay, CU secretaries, write this date down. Tuesday the 10th of August. Tuesday the 10th of August is both A-level results day and Scottish Highers results day in Scotland. It's quite convenient that this year they're both on the same date. About the only thing this year that's been convenient so far, isn't it? Okay. Now, this date is important because there is a massive social media spike on A-level results day. Okay, and then it goes on beyond that. So, this is from a few years ago, okay, but can you guess which day A-level results day was? Okay, this is the number of people who are using hashtags which are related to starting university, and the amount of people that were in Facebook groups and Instagram pages that were related to these sorts of things. Can you see there's a massive spike on A-level results day itself. Then it drops down. It gradually builds back up until Freshers Week, and then it kind of tails off again after that as well. Now, what does this mean? Have a look at this. Look at this diagram. If you are not ready with your CU social media on A-level results day, it's a total disaster zone. Okay? If you want to give a shop window to what the CU is about, to those three groups, to keen Christians, to shaky Christians, and to non-believers, you need your CU social media to be ready for Tuesday the 10th of August. Now, it might be that there's somebody within your CU who's brilliant at doing social media. Why not set them aside to be able to start thinking now about the kind of posts that you could put on and schedule around that time? Which platforms do you want to use? I'm going to suggest that each CU does at least 2. Okay? It's worth having a strong Facebook presence. I know lots of people don't have Facebook now, but the search function in Facebook means that it's often there that people will turn first. Okay, so even if you don't use Facebook very much and you started at university last summer, it was probably Facebook that you turned to in order to try and find the CU at first. It may even be worth having a temporary freshers group that you can get the freshers into, and maybe just a handful of people within the CU, which allows you to communicate more directly with them. So go for Facebook, and the other one is to go for Instagram, which is obviously the most popular platform amongst those who will be arriving at university this September. You might want to use some others. You might want to put some stuff on YouTube as well. There are other platforms that you could think about using too. But these are the 2 that I particularly suggest that you go for. What are you looking for? You're looking for any sort of tangible connection. Okay? And so the more that you put on, which encourages people to introduce themselves, to ask a question, likes are great, but it'd be brilliant if we can get beyond a point of likes so that we can start making a tangible connection with people. Why? Because we want to build friendship with them, and we want to be able to show them something else about Jesus. Now, I've got to say, of the 17 CUs in our region, many of you just did this brilliantly last summer. Just brilliantly. And so if this seems daunting, it might even be that you just want to talk to whoever it was that did social media for your CU last summer. It might even be that you just want to kind of scroll back down on Instagram or on Facebook to see what your CU did. Many of you will have known that the CUs did welcome Zoom calls the week after A-level results day this summer gone. I want to encourage you to do that again this year. It is a brilliant way to help new students make contact with the CU, whether they're Christian or not. If you're going to do that, you'll need to actively advertise this really from A-level results day onwards and the week in between. Now this year, very excitingly, UCF is also producing 4 sessions called Start Here that each CU can use with new students. It's not going to be an impact group, although it will feel a bit like an impact group. 4 sessions that will help new starters from across the world make friends and hit the ground running in the best possible way when they start at university. You don't need your staff worker to run it. You don't need a relay worker to run it. All you need is 2 Uber-friendly people to run that for your group. And that's just a great way of making welcome tangible even before somebody arrives in your city, offering them friendship, offering them Jesus. Got to say, there'll be further guidance that will follow from your staff worker on Zoom calls and on the Start Here sessions. You don't need to do anything about it at the moment apart from just to start factoring it into your thinking. And so if Freshers Week is not where welcome starts, if International Welcome Week is not where welcome starts, but it started a long time beforehand, how long should we go on welcoming people? Well, I want to suggest that rather than packing Freshers Week with just an exhausting amount of activity, it's best to see your early contacts during Freshers Week as an invitation to friendship and to a pathway to find out more about Jesus. And I want to encourage you to see that the welcome season carries on until whenever your CU's weekend away is later in autumn term. I guess for most CUs this year, that might be the end of October, beginning of November. One CU 2 years ago who really got this into their bloodstream were Manchester CU. And Manchester CU just said, look, regardless of which team you're on within CU Life, all of us, if you're a returning student, are part of the freshers team between A-level results day and the CU weekend away. I spoke at the weekend away. It was amazing that nearly 1/3 of the people who came on the weekend away didn't know Jesus, but were there on the strength of the friendship that they'd been offered and the level of intrigue about Jesus that they'd seen. I mean, it was just an amazing weekend to speak on. They didn't even really do anything differently on the weekend away. They still had times of worship, they still had times of teaching, still had seminar groups, but they just thought about how can this be welcoming to those who don't know Jesus as well as those who do. And it will cause you no surprise at all to know that actually there were quite a number who profess faith in Jesus on that weekend away. See everyone as part of the Freshers team. Yes, there'll be things that you want to do during Freshers Week, but actually think of Freshers Week as a springboard to an ongoing time of sharing the gospel beyond. Maybe that will be through impact groups in your CU. Maybe that's through running an Alpha course. Maybe that's through arranging a series of other evangelistic events which are easy to access over the next 4 weeks. Ethan, can we just put the screen? So here are the 3 principles in summary. I want you to offer people friendship and offer them Jesus. I want you to help them to aim to connect. I want you to aim to connect with 3 groups of new students. That is keen Christians, shaky Christians, and seekers. And to remember that welcome is a season, not a week. Now, just for 5 minutes, maybe think about a 1-ish minute on each of these bullet points. I want you to discuss these 3 questions. What would you like the new students in the 3 groups, that is keen Christians, shaky Christians, seekers, to know about the CU before they even arrive? Okay, what would you like them to know? Secondly, what would you like these new students, again in each of the 3 categories, to have encountered of the CU before your weekend away? And then what are the implications of your discussions? If you don't get very far with these questions, don't worry, because around the region there'll be plenty of time to discuss practicalities later on today. But just for 5 minutes, have a go at those 3 bullet points now. Guys, again, just be drawing those discussions to a close. I'll start talking again in about 30 seconds time. Do remember that there'll be plenty of time to discuss these practicalities this afternoon. This is just placing the ball on the tee. Brilliant. So we've got about 7 minutes left. Before we close, I want to give you 6 E's for Freshers Week itself. All right. So I've told you it's not all about Freshers Week, but clearly, and when I say Freshers Week here, I'm also talking about International Welcome Week. If that's something at your university, here are 6 E's to go for. Here are 6 hallmarks. First one: make sure that the CU is easy to find. All right, I want you to think about the places, virtual and particularly physical, where the CU needs to be during Freshers Week and in the early weeks of term to make you unmissable. Now, here is my prediction about restrictions for Freshers Week. I think we're going to have quite a lot more freedom than we do now on campus. However, I think universities will still be quite tight on particularly mass gatherings during Freshers Week. It seems to be to me that the trajectory of travel is if you've had a vaccine and if you're willing to take a lateral flow test and to do that sort of thing, you will be allowed to gather. So I think probably nightclubs will be open in our cities, but you'll have to make those provisos. Where there is any sort of legal sense of somebody could be saying I'm discriminated against simply on the basis of not having had a vaccine or not taking a lateral flow test, I think places will be so worried about being sued that they won't turn anyone away, but restrictions will still remain. Okay, so what does that mean? I think it means at church probably we're still going to be distancing at some measure, and maybe we might still be having to wear face masks. I think it'll be true. The same will be true in schools, probably in university lectures as well, but probably not where there's any sort of sense that you could say no to someone, you're not coming in, without them saying you're just discriminating against me. Okay, so it may mean that you just need to be quite clever in thinking about the places in which you'll set up, which will make you easy to find. It may not be that you can be right at the heart of the university, but that you can chuck a frisbee around outside each hall of residence or play spike ball or put up a banner there or stuff like that and just invite people to join in with you as you go on. So don't set your hope on being right in the centre of the busiest place. Like, it may be that that's possible, but also I just suggest that you have a kind of decentralised approach to getting out there where people can find you. Definitely it's worth having somebody on your committee who's in constant liaison with your SU activities officer, because they will be the one that will give the most up-to-date advice about where you can set up. So number 1, easy to find. Number 2, empathetic. All right, I think Freshers Week 2021 is going to be a bigger going out week than any Freshers Week for a very long time, for very understandable reasons. I was chatting to someone during the week and he's researching what happens in the year or two after a pandemic ends. And he basically says for a certain group of people, they just go crazy, okay, because they've got all this pent up freedom to express. I think we're going to see that. I think we're probably going to see quite a lot of bad behaviour during Freshers Week, okay? And we need to be ready for that. We're also going to see at the opposite end of the spectrum more kind of nervous and anxious people than ever before during Freshers Week 2. So more people are going to go out and give it large in the town, and more people are just going to lock themselves in their rooms. What does it look like to be empathetic to both of those groups of people? Watch the tone of what you communicate. Look out for those struggling. I think there'll be plenty of people who are struggling on our campuses. I'm not sure that holding a talk on whether Jesus is better than going out is very suitable for Freshers Week, ever. But also I think the sort of person who'll come to a talk in Freshers Week on Jesus is not going to... There are other things that you can do stuff on which I think will more hit the tone during Freshers Week. Third E, encouraging lasting friendships. I mean, I've already said quite a lot about this already, but most students won't come to anything during Freshers Week if they think there's no chance of making a friend there, even if it's something they're really interested in. On the flip side, if you think there's a chance of making friends at something, you'll go to almost anything during Freshers Week. So convey that. This is just going to be a brilliant place for you to make friends. Organise activities that have friendship building in mind and when there's a little taste of the gospel. And potentially the sort of thing that Christian freshers could bring their flatmates to rather than feeling that they're being dragged away from their flatmates. On that note as well, when you meet freshers, rather than kind of saying, well, why don't we go to a coffee shop, which again is dragging people away from their flats, why not go meet them in their flats? Get to meet their flatmates. You could take along a whole load of baked stuff with you. It doesn't drag them away from their mates, but it also helps them to potentially even in their witness amongst their flatmates right from the off. Fourthly, whoa, that's given you a little hint, hasn't it? Fourthly, evangelistically engaged. We want to help people begin or further a pathway of encountering Jesus during International Welcome Week, during Freshers Week. Now, we need to be sensitive to the tone of the week. Okay, so if you're having a talk or a testimony, you need to think about the length of time and the theme of what's there. But I think we can expect that there will be people who want to know more about Jesus. And so you can expect and you need to provide a clear pathway for those who are interested. It might be joining an impact group, it might be something else. Our aim is to intrigue people with something of Jesus during Freshers Week, assuming that there'll be conversations that go on in the future. Most people's heads and hearts will be so full during Freshers Week that even if they're pretty much gagging to know Jesus, the time for that conversation will be in the weeks that follows. Okay, so let's just be sensitive there, intrigue them. Fifthly, escorting to church. There'll be lots of new people coming to your city who need to help in finding a church, and probably quite a number of second year students who, for whatever reason, didn't find a church in your city this year. Some people who are arriving will be confident about finding a church themselves. They'll have done the research online. They don't mind going to church by themselves. The research seems to suggest that around 70% need help. And the particular help that they need is somebody physically going to church with them and walking through the door with them at the same time. So don't just post details of service times on your CU social media. I mean, that's a brilliant step. Do make it as easy as possible for those who are nervous to have somebody to physically meet them and walk with them into church. Do whatever is necessary to keep the initiative on the anxious person low, and ideally keep this offer open not just during Freshers Week but for the few Sundays after Freshers Week as well. And then finally, expectant. Do you know what? Jesus is building his kingdom. The gates of hell can't stop it. Nothing can stop, not COVID, not university restrictions, nothing else. That means that therefore we can expect to see lots of answers to our big prayers as the new academic year starts. Please, can I implore you, don't be caught by surprise. Don't be caught by surprise that there are people who want to find out about Jesus. Don't be caught by surprise that potentially there will be a large number of people that want to join the CU, possibly a larger number of people than you'll have seen in any single September for quite a while. That means when you're thinking about the number of impact groups or small groups that you're running, don't think about current numbers in summer term, multiply it up several times over. Your staff worker will give you guidance there. When you're thinking about booking rooms, don't think about current numbers in summer term, potentially multiply it up. I think you could afford to multiply probably your present number by about 6. And that would be the kind of numbers that you should be pitching for in September. Shape your programme accordingly. It would be a shame, wouldn't it, that having prayed and worked so hard to welcome people well, we then physically can't because we don't have the infrastructure of small group leaders, or the room is too small that we have to send people away. Remember, there are 3 impact group sessions on Welcome for you to use this term. On the theme, you'll hear more stories from the one like Jess, dig into more of the heart of God for Welcome, but also you'll be able to kind of mobilise your present CU to come back early. As soon as you start planning this afternoon, you'll realise that you have a real need for lots of bodies on the ground. What's the best way to get bodies on the ground? It'll be to pray and to cast a vision for what's possible, and these impact group sessions will do that, I think, better than anything else. It's lunchtime, but how about I pray for us before we close and then get some food together. Father, we thank you for the many blessings that you have given us. We thank you even for the blessings that we've enjoyed this morning, being fed from your word, being able to be together, of lifting our hearts. Father, we thank you that you're not a God who is a bailiff, who comes to knock on our door and to take, but you're a God who comes to give and give and give. We thank you that you so loved that you gave your Son. We thank you that you so loved that you give us your Spirit. We thank you that you so loved that you've given us a Christian family who've loved and welcomed us throughout the years. And Father, in that stream of generosity, we pray that you would help us to generously welcome others, particularly, Father, as we look ahead to the autumn. Father, I want to pray now that we would enjoy our lunchtime together, help us to be to show something of our welcome even as we break out of our CU groups, talk to people from different CUs doing different roles. And Father, we pray that this afternoon as we get practical, there would be prayers that we would pray and decisions that we would make and ideas that we would pursue that in time would cause people in the 17 CUs all across our region to come to know something of the welcome of the living God for them. Father, in our weakness, we pray that you would show mercy. Pour out your Spirit afresh on us, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, everyone. Have great discussions this afternoon.